Hello and welcome to an all new episode of the Up the Coast podcast. As always, I'm your host, Tyler, and this is going to be a two-part Saturday second round preview. In the second half, Seth Dowdle from TCU on SI will be joining me. We're going to talk about TCU and Duke. But here in the first segment from Spartan Avenue, Connor Muldowney, we're going to talk about Michigan State and Louisville. Connor, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, this is going to be a fascinating game, and the place I start with, the thing that just has not gotten out of my mind as I think about this matchup, is these two Michigan State just granite-sized bigs, Carson Cooper and Jackson Kohler, perhaps the best rebounding duo in the country. The analytics will tell you they're the best defensive rebounding duo in the nation, and that's the one thing that Louisville's big men are good at is they can actually rebound, but this is going to be a size and physicality severe disadvantage for the Cardinals.
Yeah, as anybody who's known Tom Izzo over the years knows that he preaches rebounding, getting out in transition. That's kind of Michigan State's game, and Kohler and Cooper are pretty much built in Izzo's lab as the perfect big guys to kind of run his system. I would say Kohler is probably the more aggressive, better rebounder, which is surprising considering he's a little bit smaller. But Cooper is every bit as good, and he's gotten so much better throughout the year. Those two guys are just nearly impossible to out rebound in the post when they're on their game.
Yeah, and that's probably point number one here. That if this Louisville team that has been good on the glass just gets pummeled rebounding wise, they're going to be in a serious amount of trouble. Unless, of course, this turns into the South Florida game and they just severely outshoot the other team. And maybe they can because there's no really great shooters on this Michigan State squad.
Yeah, they've kind of come along a long way since the first couple weeks of the season. I think they were shooting somewhere in the 20% range from three. I think they're up to like 36, 35, 36 now.
Yeah, I got them
They
at
have a few guys.
36.3 here.
36.3, yeah. So, I mean, they've definitely gotten back to being a decent three-point shooting team. But they have very limited shooters. Like you said, they have Jordan Scott can hit a couple. Jeremy Fears has actually gotten better from three, which is a huge step for him. And then they have Kurtang coming off the bench, who is basically like the three-point specialist. And Jackson Kohler can even shoot threes. So there are limited three-point shooters compared to usual Tom Izzo teams, but like yesterday when they're on, there's not many teams that can stop them.
Yeah, and old Miami friend Divine Ugachukwu actually led the team in percentage this year, but he's done for the season, right?
Yeah, he suffered a foot injury, but he's warming up with the team now. They've ruled him out for the season. He's probably not going to come back, barring some type of miracle. But he was a big loss considering our backup point guard is basically a glorified walk-on.
So the starting point guard, though, is going to be the huge key. Jeremy Fears, All-American in his final season. Or wait, I thought he was a senior for some reason.
No,
Holy
he's only
God,
a
he's only a
sophomore.
sophomore.
Yeah,
So he's only a year older than his brother. Okay, I
he's
thought
a
there was a
he's a
way better gap
redshirt
than that.
sophomore, so he's
Okay,
technically junior year.
okay. Well, and I think his brother reclassified and came in early to Oklahoma last year. But oh my
Yeah.
God, I guess we're going to watch him for 2 more years.
Yep.
National leader in assist rate, one of the best to get into the line. He's top 100 in free throw rate. And then once he gets there, he's top 40 in free throw percentage. I mean, this is just the exact kind of guy that Louisville has not been able to deal with all year. I mean, Michael Brown Jr., if he was out there, maybe would have been the best possible matchup to go with there. But I assume Adrian Woolley draws that assignment, and I'm not sure he can deal with the foot speed of Jeremy Fears.
Yeah, when Fears gets that first step on a defender, like it draws so much attention from everybody else on the floor. So there's going to be a collapse. Probably Louisville will collapse on him to make sure he doesn't get an easy drive to the basket. And knock on wood that Michigan State is hitting their threes that day because he's so smart with the ball in his hands that he'll either find his own shot or he's going to find a wide open guy on the perimeter, or he's going to throw a lob to Cohen Carr, or he's been so good at pretty much every aspect of his game this year that he's gotten the trust of Izzo, which is rare.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like we can just kind of keep going in this because just looking at this core four for Michigan State, the other guy, Cohen Carr, is also a perfect archetype of a guy that Louisville has struggled against this year. That rangy, athletic forward that they basically have to probably put Kenai Ruths on him. The problem being Kenai Ruths hasn't played more than 11 minutes in any of the last four games, and they just don't have that rangy wing athlete to deal with the best athlete in college basketball, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah, I would say he might be the best athlete I've ever seen, to be completely honest with you. He's kind of a freak in the way that he doesn't even need to be shooting the ball because he really has struggled with his shot. That's not his game. He's improved on his three-point shooting. He's improved on his jumpers, but he's still not super comfortable with that. But the second he gets an inch of space from a defender, he's either slashing to the basket for a backdoor alley-oop, or on breakaways, if you're not back, he's sprinting past everybody. He's one of the fastest guys on the team. And once Fierce sees him out of his peripheral streaking down the floor, he's throwing a lob. So he's one of the hardest players to defend in college basketball, even though he's not a shooter.
So, I mean, just looking at it on paper, I felt this way. And more, the deeper we get into this, the more I don't like the matchup for Louisville. But the one big question on the Michigan State side, do they have the guy who can guard?
Plus,
I was trying so hard to get through that question. I felt the sneeze building up, but do they have the guy who can deal with Ryan Conwell, a ball dominant, unbelievably fast guard? Because that's the one way that Louisville's going to be able to exploit a matchup.
I think if he can somehow get, either Scott or Fears into foul trouble, one of the two backcourt guys for State, and they kind of have to rely on their bench guys to come in and shoulder the backcourt load, I think that could be an issue for Michigan State because, like I said, Fears doesn't have a quality backup that, you would expect from a Tom Izzo coach team because Ugochukwu got injured and he was the primary backup ball handler. Um, but I would say Fears can guard just about anybody. Scott is a really good defender on the wing. He can guard, 1 through 3. Um, but the problem I have with this Michigan State team, which I think Louisville could give them problems with, is three-point defense. And it's killed them in their losses this year. It killed them against UCLA in the Big Ten tournament. They get lost on switches every now and then and leave wide open shooters in the corner at the top of the key. So it's been an issue. And if Louisville gets hot like they were against South Florida, that could be upset city for Michigan State.
Yeah, all of the keys really feel like they come down to that
Mhm.
overall. If Louisville can win the 3-point battle, they still may lose the game. If they can dominate the 3-point battle, they could get a repeat of what happened in that South Florida matchup. Now, I don't think Isaac McNeely's going to go 7 for 10 again. He just had the best game of his entire season, possibly of his career, given the stakes. But Ryan Conwell was pretty mediocre in that one. And if he can really go off, that's the path for Louisville in this one.
Yeah, I thought McNeely was watching him go 7 for 10 kind of gave me like flashbacks to every single bad Michigan State game where some guy just goes off and has a career game. Um, he could very well, get hot and be the perfect replacement for Michael Brown that Louisville needs, like he was against South Florida. And looking at Louisville's roster, they have, several 35 to 40% three-point shooters, which is super worrisome for Michigan State.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get maybe, I mean, Adrian Woolley has just been so subpar when Michael Brown Jr.'s been hurt and he's been asked to go into that starting lineup. But it does feel like he could have a huge game at some point. Javon Hadley, who's still just not shooting a ton, but is running away with the team lead in percentage. I mean, Kobe Rogers is someone who came in, we were told he was going to be a dynamite shot maker. He's only taken 31 threes on the year, but he shot it at 35%. So you're kind of just looking at all of these random, could they maybe? I mean, Ali Khalifa hit three against Duke earlier this year. Maybe that is what happens for Louisville in this game, that they get the performance of the season from one of the role guys.
Yeah, that's the one thing I don't know a ton about Louisville. I haven't watched them closely this year. I've just kind of paid attention to, their scores and how they've done against certain teams. But when I looked at the game, or I watched the game yesterday, and I looked at their roster with all the 3-point shooters, um, they have a depth of guys who can shoot from deep, which Michigan State does not have. So if Louisville gets hot, that's a major issue because that's why Michigan State has 7 losses this year. Pretty much all those, you can look at all those games, maybe besides Duke, and all those teams just got hot from deep.
Yeah, so just kind of working it through, like keys to the game in this one feel pretty obvious to me. Can Conwell have that proper starring March performance that they probably need to take this one? Can they just outshoot the Spartans a la that South Florida game? And then can Michigan State just pummel Louisville on the boards? Because the Cardinals have been an excellent rebounding team this whole year. I mean, look back, they've only lost the rebounding battle 4 times since ACC play has started. Sorry, uh, 5 times. Their worst game of the year was when Duke pummeled them by 21. It's the only time they've lost by double digits. It does feel like that's a real possibility that we look back, think, oh my God, Michigan State just won the rebounding battle 41-23. No wonder this was a 25-point victory.
Yeah, yeah. State has a tendency to just bully people on the glass, and that's a Tom Izzo staple. He used to bring out football pads for practice to make sure his guys were tough enough to rebound the ball. So if there's one thing he's for sure preaching outside of, 3-point defense, stay on your man, hand up type of stuff, it's crash the boards, get out and run. So Michigan State might have a bit of a size advantage down low, or kind of a maybe an aggressive advantage. I don't know enough about Louisville to say that, but Michigan State's going to bring it on the glass and they're going to be physical. So if Louisville isn't up for that challenge, they're going to probably get run out of the gym on the boards.
Any other major keys that you feel like I'm missing here?
I think if Michigan State, I'm going to go from the Michigan State angle. I think if the Spartans can get something from their bench again, I think that will be maybe the difference. They have a kind of a smaller rotation than usual. They have a freshman coming off the bench. They have a sharpshooter in Kurt Tang coming off the bench, and they have the backup point guard, which I won't really consider like a true role player because he wouldn't be in a normal circumstance. And then they have Trey Ford, who's a senior transfer from Samford, who had 7 points yesterday, which is probably the most he's had in a month, maybe. So if the bench players can give Michigan State something so the starters aren't just carrying the load and kind of shouldering all that pressure, I think that's a huge key for Michigan State. That's if State wins, it'll be because the bench showed up, in my opinion.
Good, because that was also the last question I had to ask for you was just any bench player could make an impact because it is kind of that same core four, the guys back from last year, Fears, Carr, Cooper, and Kohler, who jump off the page every time you look at this team. But it is March. You need more than 4 guys to show up.
Yeah, yeah, State fans have been begging for more Trey Fort pretty much all season. He's when he comes in, he's a sharpshooter. He can knock down a three with a hand in his face. His only issue is he's not a great defender. And that's kind of the same thing with Kurt Tang, as both of our backup two guards are mediocre defenders, which means they don't play as much as they should. Um, but if they get hot, like Kurt Tang, I don't remember which game it was. I think it might have been Purdue? No, it was Indiana game. I think he had 6 threes and he was just unconscious. And that's why they ran away with a 20-point road win over a tournament-ish team in Indiana. So yeah, if the bench can get going, like I could see Kurt Tang going off for 3, 4 threes, and and kind of burying Louisville at the end of the game, maybe.
All right, we will see what happens in this one. But Connor, where can all the listeners find you if they're interested in some more Michigan State coverage?
Yeah, you guys can find me at Connor Muldowney on Twitter, or SpartanAvenue.com is where most of my work is.
All right, everyone go give Connor a follow, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.